everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial, and today we are painting the Keeper of Secrets. Yes, we are doing a Greater Demon, and well, another Greater Demon, and I'm very excited because this model is absolutely stunning, and it's going to be a lot of fun to paint. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into it and start painting. Now, the first place we're going to start is by priming it with Grey Seer. I should mention that. But the first place we are going to start is we're going to start with the most difficult part, which is going to be the big black robe. And this is because we've built this in full assembly. You could build this in a sub-assembly by leaving this large cloak off. That would make it a lot easier. But we are going to be starting with the black robe because this is the one that's prone to the most mistakes. Now, the first colour that we're going to be using is a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Akhelian Green and Contrast Medium. And that is just because, well, this will help improve the flow of the Akhelian Green, and we're using this as our pre-shade because it's going to be black. And well, what we're going to do is we're just going to start painting it on there. So we're just going to start right up here at the top. We're just going to start painting it down into these big broad brush strokes like this, just bringing that all the way down like that in this nice smooth coat like so. And you just want to get this all the way down like this. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit patchy in places because it is going to be black. You want to try and get it as smooth as possible. We are just focusing on the robes for now. And it's the outside of the robes. A few little bits of schmutz on there. That's okay, we can just lift them out with the brush in just a second. You don't need to worry about this kind of decorative feature just here. So we're going to go over that with a metallic. Just going to grab a little bit of Cadian Green from the pot here. So I'm running out on the palette. Just do that last little bit. Just there like that. Perfect. So you just want to go all over. So I've got this one, this bit, inside there, and inside there as well. So with that Akhelian Green applied, you should have a robe that looks somewhat like this. Now don't worry, we are going to continue darkening it down, but what we are going to do, rather than go straight to black, because we don't want to do 2 layers of black in case it gets away from us, what we're going to do is we're going to use Leviadon Blue. We're going to once again use a 1-to-1 mix of Contrast Medium and Leviadon Blue to do this. And it's exactly the same process as we've just done with the Akhelian Green. We're using these lovely big broad brush strokes. Get a nice smooth coat. Just like this. So with that Leviadon Blue applied, you should have some really nice dark blue robes now. But what we are going to do is we're going to darken them down that last step. The colour we're going to make is roughly 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part black Templar, because we want this to be nice and thin, so we have lots of control over it. So we don't want it to just like completely dominate and clog up the detail. But as I said, the application is exactly the same as it's been so far. Get that nice smooth finish. We're just using these big broad brush strokes with the black Templar over the top, like this. As you can see, because it's just that tiny little bit thinner, it goes just that little bit further. Just like this. So with that done, you should now have this gorgeous black robe, which just looks fantastic with this sort of bluish tint. So what we are going to do now is we're going to add some highlights. The first one we're going to be using is Dark Reaper. Now we're going to be using this across quite a wide highlight along all of the kind of those kind of sharper folds. So we've got this edge here, which we're going to highlight with Dark Reaper, going all the way like that. But for example, on this kind of area just here, what we're going to do is we're going to start painting this Dark Reaper down the fold like that. Similarly here. So that Dark Reaper all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Thunderhawk Blue. I'm going to use this as a slightly narrower highlight and kind of more like a spot highlight in a way. So we're not doing the whole of these areas, so we still want some of that Dark Reaper to show. We just want to add small amounts of this Thunderhawk Blue. Along each of our folds and highlights. For example, just on this big one here. like that. And so with that Thunderhawk Blue applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Russ Grey. Now we're going to get into even smaller, narrower highlights. So what we're going to do is we're going to similarly go here. We're not going to do the whole area. We're just coming towards the tip here. Like that, kind of around about that much of the cloak there. Similarly down here. I just want to take a small amount of it, just run it towards the end, like that. Same here. Like that. So with that done, the black cloak is now finished. It looks pretty awesome. So what we're going to do now is going to move on and paint the interior of the cloaks. Now the colour we're going to be using is a roughly 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Volupus Pink. And we're going to be doing a couple of layers of this because we want it to be a nice strong pink. But we're using the contrast medium so we get that nice even flow. So much like with the outside of the cloak, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way up here, up to the top, and we're just going to start pulling it down. These nice big broad brush strokes. Trying to get a nice smooth finish. Just like this. So after 2 layers of that Volupus Pink mix, we should have some cloaks that look like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit more shading into them. And the colour we're going to use is a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part Ultramarines Blue. And basically what we want to do here is we want to fill in all of our recesses in the cloak. So we're just going to grab a brush full like this. And we're just going to start painting this mix into the darkest areas. Like that. And then for like the underside, we can colour in the whole area so it kind of comes from this nice light pink down to this kind of darker colour. And always just kind of pull it back into the recess. So like on this fold here, Kind of just drawing a line that goes across it. Into the recess. So it comes out into that like that. Like this. So you just want to go around doing this. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to add some highlights. And the first one we're going to use is Emperor's Children. So what we're going to do is just take a small amount of this on our brush. I'm going to be very careful here to draw some very thin highlights around the sharpest parts of each of those folds in the fabric. Just going to start around about here under the armpit. In fact, we'll just do it here just so you can see it a little bit better. A little too much paint on my brush there. So with that Emperor's Children applied, what we're now going to do is going to take some Fulgrim Pink. I'm going to use this as a little spot highlight along the sharpest bit, so basically towards the top folds, so up here and here. And what we want to do is much like we did on the back, is we want to add a little bit of this Fulgrim Pink coming along the parts where we really want the light to catch. Like that. And so with that Fulgrim Pink applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to finish off these cloaks, and mostly just these inner ones here, by adding a hint of red into them. As we look at the box art, there's very clear distinction that these are pinkier than the inner ones, which are a little bit redder. So the colour we're going to be making is roughly 6 parts contrast medium to 1 part Blood Angels red. And what we want to do is we just want to add this over the top of those inner cloaks. Just like this. So with that done, we've actually done the hardest part, believe it or not. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on. We're actually going to paint the skin, because the next thing to do is the kind of, well, the tights. That is a purple, but that purple is roughly the same as this purple. That's going to be the kind of blends on the arms and on the tail. And so in order to do that, we need to do the skin first, to then do the blend, to then do all the layering and highlighting. So the colour we're going to be making is a roughly 2 parts Apothecary White to 1 part Magos Purple mix. And basically what we want to do is we want to just paint this very carefully around all of the skin. like this. We want to get this over all of the skin. Just be careful with how much you've got on your brush. And if you're not confident in this colour, just add a couple of small drops of contrast medium just to improve that flow. Just that little bit. To help you get this nice smooth finish. But just take your time. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to create another mix. Now the mix is going to be a roughly 2 parts Volupus Pink to 1 part Talassar Blue. And the way you want to mix this, you want to do 1 part Volupus Pink, then 1 brushful of Talassar Blue, then another brushful of Volupus Pink, just to make sure that it's absolutely right. And just make sure by painting on your thumb that you've got this mix right, because we are looking for that kind of purple. However, sometimes if it's not properly mixed, it will come out blue, and we don't want that. So now that we've got our purple, what we're going to do is we're going to load up our brush, and we're going to use this all over the kind of the tights and also any of the areas that we want to fade into purple. So for example, the fading areas, well, for starters, what we want to do is we want to paint this mix over the top of the snapping claws, like so. Make sure we get both sides. Just make sure we haven't got too much of a dark blob on there. Like so. Lift that out as well. There we go. And then similarly, we've got this section here. So what we want to do is we basically want to get this over the top of there. We want to kind of come up to there, just before the bicep. Same coming down the other side. And then round here. Like that. I'm just going to bring it all the way around. Like that. Then what we do is we wash the brush, and then we're just going to kind of stipple away at where the colours sort of meet, just to thin out that transition just a little bit. So you get a kind of slightly smoother blend. When we come to brighten up the skin, it'll look a little bit cleaner. Or at least the effect will be complete. But for now, that's what we want to do on those sections. Similarly, we've got the tail. We want to do the same thing on the tail. coming kind of around about halfway. And then of course, as I say, we also want to paint in the tights. So with that done, you should have a Keeper of Secrets that looks somewhat like this. It's looking pretty awesome. So what we're going to do now, just before we do any of the kind of highlights on the skin and on the kind of mid purple, I'm actually just going to use some Shyish Purple straight out the pot. I'm going to use this to do two things. Well, one thing in two places. So the one thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing these large claws here with the Shyish Purple. Like so. Like so. We're then also going to run the Shyish Purple over this claw here. Like that. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. What we're also going to do though is we're going to use this Shyish Purple to paint in the kind of the tabard and the armor, well, corset type thing. So for example, in here, just using these big broad brush strokes to get these nice smooth finishes with these paints on these details. Just like this. So with that done, it is now time to do some highlights. And the first one we're going to do is Slaanesh Grey. Now we're going to be using this to highlight the tights, mostly. We're also going to use it to highlight the other areas that we've kind of done the sort of mid-purple tone, just by kind of, for example, up here, picking out the scales and the curves of the muscles. But down here on the tights, what we're going to do is we're going to use this Slaanesh Grey to just start picking out a very soft highlight around the curvature of all of the muscles. Just like this. It's a very subtle highlight, but it absolutely just elevates it. So with that now done, it's now time to relayer the skin because we want it to be that really nice pale Slaanesh skin. So the colour we're going to make is a roughly 2 parts Pallid Wych Flesh to 1 part Slaanesh Grey mix. And we're basically just going to now relayer this over all of our flat skin, just avoiding any of the recesses. So for example here on the tummy, I'm just going to start painting this all over. Like that, just avoiding the belly button. And this might take a couple of thin coats. Just get it nice and smooth. So just take your time. And then once it's all relayered, we'll come back. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to highlight all of that skin using some Pallid Wych Flesh. So what we want to do is we're going to take that Pallid Wych Flesh on our brush, and we just want to start picking out the edges. So we'll start here where we started originally, around the belly button. Just going to add a little bit of Pallid Wych Flesh, just like that. Not very much at all. Do taking a little bit more. Like that. Similarly around the muscles. You just want to add this as a highlight. So with that done, the flesh is all finished. It looks pretty spectacular, if I do say so myself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on, and we are going to paint in the face. And there's a couple of details on here. So we've got the mouth and we've got the eyes, and we want to get those done before we can move on. So the colour we're going to be using first is Volupus Pink. Now I'm using a small little detail brush, the Artist Opus Series M00 here, because I want to use only a small amount, and I want to use this to paint in the lips. And the tongue. And with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some black Templar. I'm going to use this to colour in the eyes and the teeth. So we want to use this black Templar under here. It's quite fiddly here. So we want to get the eyeball, but we also want to add a tiny bit of black Templar around the bottom eyelid as well. So we get the eyeball done first, like that. You can see this eyelid here. So that black Templar applied, what we're then going to do is take some Emperor's Children. We're going to use this to highlight that bottom lip and the tongue. I'm going to do this by just drawing lots and lots of little lines on that bottom lip. Now across the tongue. Like so. And then next up we take some Fulgrim Pink, and towards the middle of the lip, so rather than up here at the corners, we're just going to do the same thing again. And this time I'm going to draw a few less lines. Like that. And with that done, what we're now going to do is going to take some Screamer Pink. I'm going to use this to colour in the eyeball. Just like that. And with that Screamer Pink applied, we then want to take a tiny amount of Emperor's Children. We want to use this to kind of highlight the underside of the eyeball. Like that. And with that Emperor's Children highlight applied, we then want to take a teeny tiny amount of Fulgrim Pink. Use this as a little spot highlight. Like that. With those eyes finished, all that's left to do is to use some Slaanesh Grey to paint in each of the teeth. Like so. And so with that done, the face is now finished. Well, at least for now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to paint the hair in next. And the colour we're going to use is roughly 2 parts Volupus Pink to 1 part Shyish Purple mix. And we just want to get this all over the hair. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to highlight all of the clothes, the blades, and the hair. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Pink Horror. And what we want to do is we want to get some thin down on our palette, and then we just want to start picking out all of the edges on all of these areas. So we'll start down here and work our way up. So using this Pink Horror to just pick out the edge. Just like that. So with that done, you should have a Keeper of Secrets that is starting to look nearly there. But what we're going to do now is we're going to finish off the claws. And the colour we're going to be using is some Kakophoni Purple. I've already got it thinned down, I don't know why I'm going to the pot. So we're just going to take some of that Kakophoni Purple on our brush. And then along the sharp edge of the claws, we want to run this over the top of where we've done that Pink Horror. like that, just to make it look nice and sharp. Just like that. Similarly on the smaller claw, and do it on the sharp edges, like that. Then we can do the same thing on the back. And then we'll do it on the cutting edge of the smaller claw as well. And lastly, just to finish off those claws, we're going to take some thinned down Slaanesh Grey. I'm going to add an even kind of smaller highlight just to make it look extra, extra, extra sharp. So just towards the tip. To about there, like that. Similarly on this one here. Just like that. And with that done, we're now going to use some Cadian Fleshtone. I'm going to use this to finish off all of our purple leather. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take this Cadian Fleshtone and use it as a little spot highlight on the sharpest points. Just like this. In addition, I'm going to use this to finish off the hair as well, just by adding some little points for the light to catch off of. For example, like half away along these prominent strands just here. Like that. So with that done, all of the leather is now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint in the last couple of black details. And these are going to be the tips of the horns and the hooves and the fingernails, claws type things. So the colour we're going to be using first is Leviadon Blue. And we're just going to get this all over. Don't need to start with the Akhelian Green because these details are small enough that it's okay to just go straight with the Leviadon. So I've gone ahead and finished up those black details in the same style as the cloak. So with the Dark Reaper, Thunderhawk Blue and the Russ Grey and, and the Black Templar, I should say. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on. If you want to see how to do those black details, go back to the beginning of this video. But what we're going to do now is we are going to paint in the horns. The colour we're going to make is a roughly 2-to-1 mix of contrast medium and skeleton horde. And we're just going to paint this over the top of the horn. Just like that. Getting that really nice soft cream. So with that done, what we are now going to do is we're going to start work on the metallics. We are on the home straight now, I promise. So the first one that we're going to be using is Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to be using this for all of our silver details. Now we've got some very prominent silver details, such as the shield here. Just being careful once we get close to that cloak. So we've got the shield. We've got the this bit on the snapping claws. Like that. We've also got the sword. We want to do the whole of the sword, including the sword handle, but not the soft grip. A different colour. What we also want to do is we're going to take this Iron Hand steel. We want to use it all over, all of the little strings and connectors and things like that. So for example, this one up here. Now there's a lot of gold details on the Keeper of Secrets, but we're just going to focus on getting all the silver done now. So don't worry about like avoiding the little connectors and jewels and things. You just want to get it all over these details for now. You'll save yourself a massive headache trying to avoid everything, and then when we come to do the shading section, you save yourself a headache there as well. So you just want to go around like this, check the box art for any other areas that you want to be silver, and then once that's done we'll come back. So with that Iron Hand steel all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Talassar Blue, and we're going to use this to paint in all of the kind of connectors of the strings. And this is what I mean about kind of saving yourself from going a bit crazy. So all of these little kind of nodules and things, we don't want them to be this colour. However, if we do get Talassar Blue on them, it's not the end of the world, because we've not now painted them in the gold that they're going to be. What we want to do is we just want to go around like this. Picking out all of these areas. So with that Talassar Blue applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Volupus Pink. We're going to apply this to some of the links, not all of them. So basically what we want to do is kind of go alternate, and then we don't want to colour in the whole thing either. So for example, just here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of this Volupus Pink just here. And then we're going to do a little bit of Volupus Pink just there like that. And similarly over here. A little bit of Volupus Pink there. And a little bit of Volupus Pink just there. Also add a little bit of it coming down here. Like that. Make sure we follow that one round. Like this. So we're just adding a little bit of variation to all of these areas. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some thinned down Retributor Armour. We're going to use this to paint in all of our remaining metallic details. Now there's a lot of gold details. So we've got areas such as all of the hanging jewels. We've got the device on the shield. We've got all the little bobbles and things that are holding all of the links. All the chains and things together. So just check the box art. Take your time. Go through it a section at a time. Just pick out all of the gold details with the Retributor Armour like this. And so with that done, as you can see, there is rather a lot of gold all over the Keeper. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some shades. And the first one we're going to add is Gryph Charger Grey. I said that really weirdly, Gryph Charger Grey. And we're going to be using this on our remaining silver details. So for example, around here, and on the sword, and on the shield. And so with that done, you should have some silver details that look somewhat like this. So what we're going to do now is going to take some black Templar, and across the flat of the blade, we're going to paint this black Templar. So we just want to take a small amount of this on our brush. We want to take it very steady here. Just be very careful. And what we want to do is across this section and the handle, we want to paint this black Templar. So with that done to the sword on both sides, what we're now going to do is we're going to once again use some Iron Hand Steel to brighten back up these silver details, and we're going to be doing this in a number of different ways. So firstly, on the shield, what we want to do is we basically want to re-brighten up the shield whilst just ignoring all of the deepest areas. That we've shaded. Like that, so we get it back to being nice and shiny. On the snapping claws areas, what we want to do is we want to effectively highlight, but also re-brighten up this kind of central part here. So we want to add this Iron Hand Steel all over. Like that. Still coming around. That area. Then on the back part, you just want to brighten it all the way. Whereas on this section here, kind of slopey bit, I'm going to turn it into an edge highlight. So it becomes darker towards the front, but it's nice and bright towards the back. That sort of thing. And then on the sword, what we want to do, we want to create a sort of non-metallic metal effect by effectively re-brightening sections of the sword, but leaving where the Gryph Charger Grey has really settled. It's on like the curves of the sword. So for example, here what we want to do on the sword blade is we want to highlight that little bit just there, and then we want to pick out the edge like that. And then on the main part of the sword, we want to pick out the edge, but then across this kind of middle part of the sword, we want to relayer the Iron Hand Steel. Like that, before we bring it out into being a edge highlight again. So similarly at this end, pick out that bit, edge highlight, turn it into a layer. So we keep that Gryph Charger Grey bit just there. Same on the underside, and same in this bit here. So just go around and do this until you're happy, and then we'll come back. And so with that done, to all of our silver. What we're now going to do, we're going to take some thinned down Stormhost Silver. We're going to apply this as an edge highlight, particularly on areas such as the blade, the sharpest part of the blade. And we're not going to be highlighting the flat of the blade with Stormhost Silver. We'll be highlighting that with something different in just a moment. But all the bits that are still currently silver, we are going to highlight with Stormhost, make it look nice and sharp. So with that Stormhost Silver applied to all of our silver details, our snapping claws are now finished. Shield isn't quite there yet. Don't worry, we're going to get to that in just a minute. What we are going to do is finish off the sword, and then we're going to finish off the shield, and then we're going to do all the gold. So, in order to finish off the sword, what we're going to start doing is we're going to start highlighting that black. The colour we're going to be using is Dark Reaper. So what do we want to do? Take that Dark Reaper on our brush, and just start highlighting up all the edges. In the black. That could be quite a wide edge highlight. Doesn't have to be super narrow. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Russ Grey. I'm going to use this as a highlight over the top of all of that. So what we want to do is just want to start picking out all those edges with the Russ Grey. Just like this. And with that done, you should have a sword that looks somewhat like this. It's very nearly finished. What we're going to do is we're just going to take some Fenrisian Grey. I'm going to use this as a little spot highlight on the sharpest point. So for example, just up here, we want to add a little bit of this Fenrisian Grey. Like that. And just here on this corner here, like so. We can add a little bit of it on the twirly bits like that. What we also want to do on the blade itself is we want to add some little, just some tiny little lines. Not very many, but one, and we'll add another one around about there. Like so. We're going to do another one up here, going diagonally across. Like that. We'll add another little tiny one next to this one as well. Like that. And then what we do is we add a Fenrisian Grey spot highlight along the flat next to where we've added those. So and lastly, just to finish off this effect, we want to take a teeny dot of Corax White, just where the line and the kind of edge of the blade meet. I'm going to add that dot of white. Like that. So with that sword blade now done, what we're going to do is we're going to use some Blood Angels Red. I'm going to use this to paint in the soft grip. So that's sword grip done. What we're now going to do is we're just going to finish off the shield. The colour we're going to be using is Stormhost Silver. Now we're going to be filling it down with loads and loads of water, like 5 or 6 parts water. And basically what we want to do is we want to glaze over the top half, or rather this section with this Stormhost Silver to make it look nice and mirrored. Because it's nice and thin, it will retain what we've already done. It'll make it look extra shiny. Careful it doesn't get too far away from you, which it can do. You don't want this to now run into those recesses that are nice and lovely shaded. If you do happen to accidentally get some in, just grab some Gryph Charger Grey. Just give it a little recess shade. Come down to around about there, like that. And we want to just kind of come around about as far as there. Like so. With that shield now polished to a mirror sheen, what we're going to do is we're going to shade all of the gold details. Now the colour we're going to be using for this is Fyreslayer Flesh. We just want to take it very steady here. Again, just like when we were doing the gold details. Just want to take it a section at a time, make sure you get them all. And just use small amounts of the Fyreslayer Flesh, don't need loads here. So that Fyreslayer Flesh applied, what we're then going to do is just going to quickly take some Retributor Armour and use this to brighten up the emblem on the shield once again, just to make it nice and shiny. Just avoiding the recesses. With that Retributor Armour reapplied to that shield, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Canoptek Alloy. I'm going to use this to highlight all of our gold. So we're just going to once again just start down here. And we're just going to start working our way up. just like this. So with that done, our Keeper of Secrets is so very nearly complete. All that's left to do is to paint in all of the gems. And now there are a lot of gems, but they're reasonably simple to do. So the first colour we're going to use is Blood Angels Red. And this is going to be for a lot of them, actually for the majority of them. So these are going to be for mostly the ones that are hanging off of the Keeper. And because we've highlighted them with Canoptek Alloy, they'll be nice and bright. So you just want to go around like this, picking out all the gems that you want to be red. The ones to ignore are the ones on the shield, the sword, this one, and the ones on the head. They are going to be slightly different colours. Oh, and the ones down here on the cloak as well. And with that done, we're now going to use some Akhelian Green, and this is going to be to paint in all the sort of bluish gems. So this is going to include this one down here, like that. Got the ones on the head. Like that. And then we've got the ones on the shield. With that Akhelian Green applied, we're then going to take some Shyish Purple. I'm going to use this to shade the gems on the sword. So with this Shyish Purple applied to those gems, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Lugganath Orange and we're going to use this to highlight all of our red gems by just drawing a little line going around the bottom corner. Just like that. With that Lugganath Orange applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Baharroth Blue and we're going to do the same thing on our Akhelian Green bluey gems. Like that. What we can also do is add a little highlight of Baharroth Blue to some of our little strings as well. With that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Kakophoni Purple. I'm going to use this to do the same thing on our purple gems. Like that. With those highlights all applied, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Leviadon Blue, and on this big gem here in the shield, just want to add it in a circular motion in the top corner. Add a little bit of extra depth to that gem, just avoiding where we've done that highlight to make it look nice and dark, like that. And lastly, but by no means leastly, we're going to take a small amount of Corax White and we're going to add these as dots in the opposite corner. Of each of the gems. And so, with those gems all finished up and the base complete, our Keeper of Secrets is now finished. And it looks absolutely stunning, even if I do say so myself. That sword looks absolutely incredible, and the cloaks, they are such a focal point of the miniature that it looks almost quite imposing as it strides across the battlefield with its quicksilver swiftness to deal death and destruction to the enemies of the Pantheon. Really fun miniature to paint, and it's an incredible centerpiece to have for any Slaanesh Demons army. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you can now become a YouTube channel member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these absolute bosses have done. And if you just want to shoot me a little thanks, just because you really love this video, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.